Thank you guys so much for listening to The Oldest Profession. This is an old episode. Specifically, it's an episode that I recorded with Dr. Charlene Fletcher on election night 2020. I got drunk. She may have gotten a little drunk. And I had done too much research into Melania Trump. We dive into a lot of things in this episode. Some of them are funny. Some of them are factual. And for liability purposes, we're not going to be distinguishing between those two things. But anyway, we are re-releasing this episode because Melania has released a documentary about herself. I have not seen this documentary. No one can make me watch this documentary. But because people are finding the podcast looking for more information about the First Lady, we thought we would re-release the episode we recorded about her 6 years ago. Enjoy.
Be a poet, a preacher, madam, prophet, a doctor. The house high on the mountain, gritting grime in the valley. Everyone holds a story, infamous or of glory, and this is where we come to get the whole story told. I'm in the oldest profession. Oldest profession. I'm in the 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 oldest profession now.
Welcome! We are so excited. We are super excited. This is our second Old Pro panel coming to you live Tuesday, November 3rd, election night for the election of our lifetimes. I'm your host, Dr. Charlene Fletcher. Here's the thing. First of all, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Please check out our 3-part podcast about Victoria Woodhull. Check out our first Old Pro panel about Victoria Woodhull that we did last week. It was awesome. Check us out this month as we honor and revere and explore the wonderful, magical lives of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, but today is a bit different because it is election night. Kaytlin and I, Kaytlin Bailey, the hostess with the mostest,
Thrilled to be here.
Old Pro podcast, we are hanging out and we're talking all things. Well, we're talking about a lot of things, but we're talking about Melania Trump tonight.
Yes.
And so our hope is that we prevent or possibly just delay any panic attacks you guys might have this evening. I don't, excessive drinking, we're here to bring not only, intelligent conversation, but also a bit of levity on what is otherwise an extremely tense evening in the United States.
I can't speak for you or any of the other old pros tuning in, but I will tell you personally that I am self-medicating in a lot of different ways. I took an Ativan, which is self-care, and I have a mug of potato chips, which is a drug. I have a mug of bourbon because I am in the South and from the South. I have a beer, and I have a water because I'm 34 years old and I know how to take care of myself. And so, yeah, I'm here. I'm very prepared for whatever happens next and to talk about all of it. We're going to get into it. I resent knowing as much as I do about Melania Trump. We did this little bit of a publicity stunt, I thought oh, LOL. And now I've had to read 3 books on this bitch. And I like her less than I did in the beginning, which wasn't much. I feel angry that I'm upset. We were talking before because it's election night, right? There's live breaking news. I feel like I'm not the only person with tabs open on my computer, and we're I don't know if you want to disconnect. We're not really counter programming so much as we are adjacent programming, So if something happens, we feel like we should tell you. And then Dr. Fletcher was like, we could be the news, and I'd be like, yeah, Old Pro Productions stuff, but from a horror's perspective, that's what we do here.
Absolutely. And so
Productions.
I am excited. I'm here for this. Let's do this.
Mhm.
Before we do get started, I want to say, number one, welcome to our fantastic interpreters, Shelby and Liz. Hey, y'all. Welcome. And again, if you're checking us out for the first time, welcome. But visit us on the web at theoldestprofessionpodcast.com or log into your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you work with, and check us out. Oh, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Boom.
Yep. We're on all the things, and we'll learn TikTok. We're a little too old. We have to hire someone for that, but we will crack the TikTok code.
Totally, because I don't understand TikTok at all.
I mean, that's not your job. And I will also say, for live viewers of the show, if you go to the website now, we have a merch store available, and we're not making a big deal about that because I don't know if you noticed, but there's a historic election going on, and we feel that we might be upstaged. But like, we will be talking about T-shirts and sweatshirts and stickers and all of the cool things that we have available at the Old Pro Store. But we're talking about it for the first time right now. So if you wanted to check out our merch or do some stress shopping, I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but we have merch now.
I'm excited because I want one, and then I can embroider it under the nice little umbrella. Dr. Fletcher is going to be awesome. Badass. All right. So, Melania, let's talk about how we got here.
Well, I feel like a little bit like the Victoria episode, Melania Trump also begins with the was she, wasn't she question. You know, I feel like there's a lot of a lot of like, well, what can you know? And that's a serious accusation. And there was that lawsuit with the blogger. And so I want to say now that, I mean, we play fast and loose with labels here at Old Pros. And so, but we are claiming Melania Trump with just as much evidence, if not more, than Victoria, right? Circumstantial, persistent rumors, a series of events that sort of doesn't make sense otherwise. I think an unapologetically transactional marriage and professional relationships. Like, again, no judgment, but those are the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about. But if you're looking for like, oh, we found her escort ad, that's not a thing, and that's not right. Yeah, this isn't.
It's not a thing. I think it's key, especially for folks who are joining us for the first time. When we talk about sex work, we're talking about sex work broadly. And that encompasses dancing. It encompasses...
I count Hooters waitresses. I'm trying to build a political movement. Listen. Like...
Yeah. And so what we do have archival evidence of, you can Google, images of Melania butt ass naked.
She wasn't paid for those images, and I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Okay.
But yeah, no, we started
free advertisement. That's what I...
Well, I mean, like so many performers, she was paid an exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, we're digging into, so sex work, like you said, Dr. Fletcher, is a big umbrella term that includes, but is not limited to, acts of prostitution, escorting work, full service work, all of the sort of typical, stereotypical things. But we also, it's a big, broad, sticky topic that has been stretched as far as Donald Trump calling Hillary Clinton a nasty woman during the second presidential debate, right? So like, it's horror is one of those very fast and loose concepts. But we decided to do this episode in part, I think, to dig into this issue and also to kind of to answer the nagging concern, because I Melania Trump exists in my imagination like sort of within the legacy of other courtesans that have ascended to the upper echelons of power, and like especially that sort of like high profile consumption in the way, and I don't associate that with many first ladies or even other like queens or like leaders in inner courts that don't take on that sex work role. Like the closest association I can come up with is like maybe a Marie Antoinette kind of figure. And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But
I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Let's talk about her her early life, the early days in Slovenia.
Yeah, so she's born into this like working class family in Slovenia, which
Mhm.
is under what it sounds to me like a very corrupt kind of communist rule, and that her father was like a business owner in that world. But what that meant in a corrupt system is that, sort of like Donald Trump, like anyone in organized crime, he's like a wheeler and a dealer, because the people that are listening to this sort of like corrupt government are fools, right? That like there's become like a lack of trust in the state. And so her father getting around those rules was just like a very normalized way of doing business. And he's able to move the family from, I would say, like a working class situation to a middle class situation within.
Right. They weren't poor. They weren't rich. Middle class. He's a car salesman, or was a car salesman.
Yes, something sales.
Yeah.
Something where I was like, oh, girl, I get it. It's hard.
Car salesman. And her mom apparently designed children's clothes, which I thought was fascinating.
Her mom is a fascinating character to me, because from what I could tell, she was a working mom, right? So she went to and worked like in a factory for these, like long shifts. And then on top of that was both like the designer and maker of her daughter's clothes and wardrobe, but also like a very chic dresser herself. Like there's an anecdote, I think, from Melania's childhood where she is like on the floor in this factory, like in heels. And I feel like I learned a lot about Melania's mom when I found out that Melania has been in beauty pageants and modeling contests since she was 7 years old. I feel like that was like a big moment where I was like, oh, I see you.
I see you. I see your trajectory. We see where you're going. Because at 16, she's modeling.
Yes.
At 15, she's 15, 16, she's modeling. And enrolls in the university.
So so she gets into, and this is a source of some controversy later, but she apparently gets into this like competitive architecture school in like some real city. Like she's from rural Slovenia, and then like this architecture school or whatever is in like, I don't know, city, right?
Starts
city,
with an
Slovenia.
L, and there we go.
Sure, great. Spell that. I'm kidding. Don't. We didn't provide you. So and then she apparently chooses to drop out of architecture school in order to pursue the more lucrative and stabler career of modeling, which one of her more generous and talented biographers characterized as a really smart, rational move, because architects, you can study for years and still end up only designing doors, and who becomes great? You can't break out of the doors career cul-de-sac, glass ceiling. I don't know. They were just like, this is silly. So obviously, because she had so much ambition, she's got to pursue modeling. And I was like, whew, you should have gone into novels. I'm sorry, Dr. Fletcher, I resent this whole podcast so much because I had to read three fucking books on this bitch. And they were all so bad. And I'm so mad about it.
Oh my goodness.
So she drops out of architecture school to make the smart choice to go full-time into modeling. And in which case, her parents are very supportive, right? Her parents actually, I think, pay for her to have a flat. They send like her older or younger sister. We know the answer to that question. I just forget because they don't think it matters. But her sister comes after her, and her mom is like her main source of information, which I think is important, right? This bond and relationship between the mother and daughter, where Melania is like calling her mother, who is again, like, working these long hours and meticulous about like the way that things fall, and understands, I think, the power of feminine wiles, and is coaching her daughter through how to navigate the big city and how to navigate modeling, and then later how to navigate New York, and I suspect still to this day how to navigate shit from her permanent resident status in the White House. You know, where like Melania lives to this day with her mom.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's not the first time we've seen situations where, you know, a mother, I don't want to use the term coach, but
yeah, but I don't want to use the word pimp. So, you know, like we're
okay. Well, then yeah, it is what it is.
Train, educate,
let's go with educate. Let's do that. That sounds safe. It's not unusual to have the grandparents in the White House.
True. Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. Michelle Obama.
Yeah, her mom. Yep. Actually, and I found this to be interesting. So apparently Donald Trump sleeps in the master bedroom in the White House, which is on the second floor. Mm-hmm. And he has a lock on his door. And she sleeps in a bedroom on the third floor, the same room that was occupied by Michelle Obama's grandma, her mom, excuse me.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that dynamic in a minute, their relationship. But it's not the first time where, you know, you've had a parent in the White House. It's just she has an interesting relationship with her mom. I think.
Sure. So like, yes, I'm with you, and I know we're gonna get into it, and I don't know, you know, hashtag no spoilers or whatever. But like, yes, it is not unusual to have a grandparent in the White House, especially when you have, you know, like a child, and like, you know, it's not unusual for us to use our parents and our in-laws for childcare. But it is unusual for a first lady to speak exclusively Slovenian with her parents and child, essentially exiling Donald Trump from his own family. That is a dynamic that I find fascinating and can't get enough on, and don't think that any of Melania's biographers have spent nearly enough time on. But we digress. So Melania drops out of architecture school and becomes a full-time model in Slovenia. Or Milan. Right, she gets discovered by this like Slovenian photographer that is like this sweet 16-year-old girl is very photogenic. Yeah. And
by the time she's 18, she's in Milan.
She's in Milan. Yeah. And is this the period where she engages in, I think, the only photo shoot that I think can be sort of like safely described as like softcore porn, right? With the Swedish model, and for the French magazine or something.
Yeah, the French magazine Max.
Yes.
So there were two sets of photos, if I'm not mistaken. There was a shoot in 96.
That's the one on Trump's plane, right?
Not 96, 2000. Sorry.
Yeah. 2000 is the one that's on Trump's plane, right?
Yes. In the British GQ.
Yeah.
And then the one with the Swedish model are the French magazine Max.
Yes. And that is something where it's like, I don't know, some people characterize it as softcore pornography. Some people describe it as erotica. Some people describe it as French. So, you know, like it's whatever. I've done nude modeling, right? Like I posed for charcoal paintings in my college art classes. And like, again, it's like no judgment, but it's like, is posing for naked pictures sex work? It's like, well, is it not sex work? It's what Betty Page was arrested for. So
exactly,
you know, like what?
Exactly.
Right.
It would have been, you know, since we've come off of our conversations about Victoria Woodhull, it would definitely be something to be arrested under Comstock laws. So, you know, lewd, explicit, whatever you want to call it, they exist. There's two sets of pictures that exist.
How'd she get from Milan to New York? Because I know that it was a goal of hers. And I also know that she didn't get there until she was 26, which in the world of modeling is old.
She was encouraged by, let me see if I can find this person's name. She was encouraged by a photographer to come to New York. And apparently it was something that she wanted to do. And so she came here in 90, came here, meaning New York, in 96, where she continued to model. And of course, there were questions about whether or not she was here and working illegally and all of those things. But in terms,
Yeah, no, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is a period of sort of like murky facts of Melania's life, right? Like she comes here to be a model. She is featured in a couple of campaigns. We don't have a whole lot of information. This is where the like, did she, didn't she escort allegations kind of come in, right? Like her early years in New York as she's trying to break in as a model. And this is just something that I sort of wanted to comment on that defines really Melania's life at almost every place we meet her, from her like primary school years all the way through even her New York modeling days, is that she's a homebody. She doesn't have a lot of close, intimate, personal friends. There's nobody that feels like they are seeing like the intimate, disheveled, hot mess, human, flawed version of Melania Trump, that she is like working and trying to get ahead, or she is sleeping and doing self-care. And that is it.
I agree. She comes here in 96. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a point in time where and this just further illustrates, this seclusion or reclusive
isolation.
Yeah. Because she's sharing an apartment completely platonic with a male friend who is also a photographer in the field. It's a business relationship, nothing's happening there, it's not an intimate thing. But I think that that dynamic also is another example of this.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to be that the photographer that she was rooming with for, I forget if it was like 6 months or 2 years or like some period of time, but models, much, like I think sex workers, performers, artists, are kind of a transient class. So this was a photographer sort of connected to the world of models,
right?
That, like, had a spare room and the social connections to keep it filled with people who are looking for a temporary place to stay.
Right.
Which is a dynamic that I have familiarity with in New York, but like I was drunk the whole time, and Melania seems to be like eating carrots and drinking water and like just going to auditions and being, very focused, as it were.
One of the ways that referring to it as, this reclusive or isolationist vibe that we're getting from her, but one of her biographers, the Slovenian Bojan, I forget his last name. It's on our annotated bib, though.
Great. Go to our website and you can correct us.
It's there. He describes her as being quiet and shy, but yet still full of ambition.
She seems like cold and calculating is another way to say that, right?
Yeah. That's the one thing that doesn't change about her. She speaks all these languages. She leaves home. She reinvents herself into this, world-class model. But the one thing that doesn't change about her is that level of ambition, and then this quiet, shy persona.
Which is a fascinating juxtaposition of things, right? Because, I feel like I know a lot of ambitious people that are really out late at night pursuing those connections, and it's a rare breed that is like ambitious and also home at 9 p.m. most of the time. And the thing that gives me pause or ammo, or like if we want to dwell, I mean, this is the Oldest Profession podcast, right? So we are here to sort of dwell and linger and add clarity to old pro elements of Melania's life. Although I wouldn't call this part like a highlight, but it seems that, part of the work of modeling is being hired to be photographed. Part of the work of modeling is being hired to show up to events, to be ego or arm candy for whatever the elite power class is. And part of that job is at least the appearance of sexual availability. And so there are not many descriptions of Melania's dating life during this period of time, but she didn't date anyone broke. I'll just throw that out there as like Snapple facts.
Snapple facts. You are hilarious. So let's move into her dating life, because she comes here in 96. She meets Donald Trump in 1998.
Yep.
And one of the things I recall reading, and I have to say, I think I was just as angry as you that I've read so much about this.
Yeah, no, I had to take a break every couple of pages because I was like, I feel like a worse person. I think this is... Yeah, I feel like I'm being forced to read Us Weekly. Like, that's...
Absolutely.
Right? I swear to God, like, Melania and Me as a piece of writing reads like a drunk mom cornered you at a party and really wants to unload about, like, a PTA project that got way out of control. That's, like, the whole tone of Melania and Me.
Screaming at you.
Right.
Painful. It was a painful.
Yeah, just like drunk white bitch yelling.
That's it. It's Karen. So she meets
Donald in 1998.
Yeah, in 98.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember reading stated that at first she refused to date him.
I love the story. So there's the story of how they met, right? And it's something that they've like had to tell over and over again. So it's like a little bit of a construct and like how much of this is real. But the story of how they met is that there was some event and Donald Trump was ostensibly, oh, excuse me, that's the whiskey and beer. It's whatever. So Donald Trump showed up to an event where he was supposed to be introduced to this like ostensibly more famous model, and that like Melania is sitting on the couch with this woman, and that Donald Trump recognizes Melania immediately and is like, I don't care about this other person who's like the brunette. And the way that Donald Trump tells this story reminds me a little bit of the way that like fairy tales are constructed, and that like the prince can tell the like real virgin, or like the prince can tell like the real virtuous person. So it's like he picks Melania out of this like crowd of equally beautiful women, and then is like, you know, I would like your number. And she says, you're here with someone else. I'm not going to give you my number, but you can give me your number, to try to reverse the power, which I think is an old pro move. It's certainly an old courtesan move. Turning the tables, like changing the power dynamic, doing the unexpected thing for sure. But then she like, it's sold as this virtue signal thing of like, oh, I'm not going to fuck with somebody who is like, I think he was married, or like married
married to Marla Maples.
Right. Married to Marla Maples and dating someone else. She's like, that's too many levels of taken for me. Yeah. Right. Like, so, you know, but then she, like, it's sold as this virtue where she's like, I'm not going to enable this man's cheating, but then is immediately followed up with, but I was really impressed that he gave me so many of his phone numbers. It's like such a Donald Trump story where it's like this big, egregious moral failing followed up by this weird detail that like doesn't make anything better, but people get hung up on for no good reason.
So strange. So she refuses to date him initially. Then at some point she changes her mind because they get married in 2004. Yeah, they're engaged in 2004.
I think it's engaged in 2004, but I feel like they had like an 8-year relationship before they were married, which is where the overwhelming majority of Melania's big ticket modeling credits come in. She gets the majority of her work as a quote unquote supermodel as Donald Trump's girlfriend, right? And so like the unpaid British GQ magazine spread is a great example of that, where it's done on Trump's plane. This promise of like, if you use Melania Trump as a face, you will get the added benefit of Donald Trump's publicity machine behind you. The camel ad, I think, happens during this period of time.
Mhm.
And another thing that happens during this period of time is her calling in to the Howard Stern show as Donald Trump's girlfriend, playing this sort of like cartoonish sex kitten character.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in addition to these modeling gigs and what have you, they get married in 2005. She has her first child, her only child.
Wait, before we move on to her child, though, I feel like we have to dwell a little bit on the wedding, because I think it is important to note, and like an interesting tidbit that I think, again, sums up so much, is that Donald Trump and Melania Trump's wedding was like produced by Mark Burnett, like the same guy that produced The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Right, produces their wedding at Mar-a-Lago. Is that how you pronounce that? Marco Logo? I want to be like Marco Logo. Morocco. I don't know. It's
Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, Mar-a-Lago. Whatever. I don't care. Mar-a-Lago. I don't. It's whatever. I don't. Mar-a-Lago. Right? They produce it there, and Melania puts her foot down, and she doesn't allow like actual footage of the actual wedding ceremony to be used, but like everything else is a photo spread and like sold for pieces, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I feel like that the wedding is such a symbol of their relationship, right? It's gaudy, it's flamboyant. And the other thing that's true about that, and like Melania didn't have that many guests there. Like Hillary Clinton was there, but like it was like Melania, her parents, her sister, and that's it. Like there wasn't a bride section because she didn't come to the relationship with a social network. Right.
Which takes us back to the shy, quiet girl. And of course, the wedding is a who's who, because like you said, Hillary Clinton is there. I don't know anybody who's gotten married and, you know, the wedding have an executive producer. Like, it doesn't happen like that. But it's
I had a wedding planner and circus performers, but no producer. So
circus performers?
Yeah, I had a circus themed wedding on a farm. I had a circus themed wedding on a farm. It was not as flamboyant as like the thing, but like, yeah, it was a thing.
Okay, I totally need to hear this story, and like I need to see pictures of that. But we will
have to do that. That's Patreon bonus content. Is like you and I'll Zoom, and I'll like share my photo wedding album, and like you and I can nerd out about. I was bringing my big queer sex worker New York performer family, and sort of blending it with Trey's like multi-generational family of Baptist missionaries, and so a circus felt like an opportunity for things that are not normally okay are okay today. So we had a paid bearded lady and like a bunch of trans guests. And everyone was fine. And this was October of last year in the before times when people were doing weddings.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, I need to see pictures of this.
Okay.
I do. So so let's go back to their wedding. So it's extravagant. There's all of these famous people there. So-called quote unquote nasty woman Hillary Clinton is there. They have a 5-foot wedding cake or something crazy.
Her dress was bananas. There was like hand-sewn crystals. It was like 1,000 hours and $1 bajillion. Like
and then she had to back up because that one, it weighed a ton, and she's
can't dance in it.
Soaking wet, as they say in the South. But one of the things that like you said, there was no bride section. But the other thing that and this is not an endorsement of Melania Trump, but what I did appreciate, even with all of this gaudiness, she didn't carry the traditional bouquet.
Right.
She carried family heirlooms.
Right.
And At first I was kind of like, huh? But then when I thought about it, I really felt like that spoke to the relationship that she maintains with her mom.
Yeah.
Both of her parents, yes, but in particular her mother. I don't know if you read that. But
I had not read that. That is new information, but I totally see how that fits, where she's sort of carrying, like her mother's legacy, right? Of the craftsmanship and the focus on the inherited things.
Yeah.
And I will also just say, like, this is true with a lot of Melania's biography, and that, like, I don't like her, I don't want to hang out with her, but I feel like I must respect her for some of the things that she's been able to accomplish, because, like, I fought the bouquet fight with my parents. I didn't want a traditional bouquet, and I lost that fight. And so, this is one instance where Melania Trump exceeded my ability at boundary setting and, like, general old pro skills. So credit is due where it goes, Dr. Fletcher. I don't.
Oh, my goodness.
So the other thing that I find charming about their wedding is that somebody played The Lady is a Trump, Frank Sinatra's classic, The Lady is a Tramp. And I think that's great. But yeah, they did this wedding, and then she becomes subsumed, welcomed, absorbed into the Trump family, right? She's the third Trump wife, so that there's got to be some awareness there. Yeah, and then what happens next?
Well, after this gaudy wedding, her son comes along, Trump's fifth child.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah, no. I always forget Tiffany too. So, it took me a second, but yep, you are correct.
Fifth child. And again, I'm not a fan of hers, but we don't see her frequently, as compared to other first ladies. But when we do see her, we definitely see her with her son.
Yeah, I feel like that is also how I think her biography has been written many times, and that, like, the birth of her son is like an easy purpose for, like, writers who are looking for a motive, right? It's like she's more a mother than I think she is anything else, right? So, like, we don't see a lot of modeling after she becomes a mom. We don't see a lot of other professional ambition aside from this company that she starts, which you bring up. Right. Which I think is worth doing a deep dive in.
So let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. It's like cream products, right? Like face shit.
So it was like caviar-based face shit.
Right, that's right. Right.
And she also had a jewelry line that she pushed on QVC. So yeah.
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be so. Melania Trump, the relationship that she has with Donald Trump is complicated and transactional and obviously negotiated, and, like, everyone's doing their best, and there's, like, a lot going on there. But she is a woman who, like, looks at the decor of the Trump brand and is like, this is fine, but I'm building myself a refuge of isolated, like a one-woman spa. Right? I'm not bringing my girlfriends over. We're not doing slumber parties. This is not a social event. But if I'm getting a facial, I'm doing it in my own space that I design myself. So she designs her own spa. She is featured as as Donald Trump's girlfriend on The Apprentice, right? Pushing this caviar cream stuff, right? Where the filmmakers go in, or I'm sorry, not documentary, the reality television producers go and they get access to her, like, private spa that she built herself, and push, or essentially, like, create a commercial for this product. My favorite fact about this episode that Melania Trump is featured in The Apprentice is that one team fully misunderstood what it was that her product did. Like, just didn't understand, on a most foundational level. They were like, we're selling earrings. And she was like, this is eye cream. And then the other team misspelled her name for the whole campaign. So it's like, so on the one hand, Melania Trump has a lot of power. And on the other hand, Melania Trump is still a woman in Trump's world, which it means that she cannot be seen or heard.
No, absolutely.
But but she's selling her jewelry product on QVC. She's doing this thing and she creates this like caviar cream product or whatever. And then because she takes her husband or maybe boyfriend or like, I don't know, that sort of in-between partners, like advice on everything, ends up in this legal dispute with the manufacturer and they never get the shit to the floor. So she sells it a lot of places. She sells out her inventory, like everything that Melania Trump as an entrepreneur, as a brand, as a spokesperson can do, she nails. But she partners with like a guy who knows a guy manufacturer through the Trump network and ends up not being able to deliver any of her caviar shit, which I assume is a perishable product. And if it's not, then it's probably not real caviar.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So Melania's skincare, Melania's timepieces, those were the watches or whatever. So she had watches and then other pieces of jewelry in this.
I don't remember what else she had. I do remember it being advertised as affordable luxury. That she's like taking some kind of like extravagant taste and like making some sort of which I think is a lot of the Trump brand. Like I forget the comedian. I'm gonna kick myself because like he's famous and I should know who he is. But there's a comedian that is like, Donald Trump is like a homeless man's fantasy of what a rich man is. And I feel like Melania Trump is like a fantasy of what like a rich woman of leisure is. Like, this is a woman who like logs 8 hours a day in a spa, you know? Like that's
No, I would agree with that. So her caviar face cream, eye cream, whatever, and her, affordably luxurious timepieces came into question on Inauguration Day in using the office of the First Lady as a way to promote her brand. And so in response, the administration took that information off of the White House website, and she consistently reaffirmed that she was not using the office of the First Lady as a profit machine for any of her enterprises. Can't say the same for her husband, but okay. So,
which like part of me is like very susceptible to this like go girl boss lady like that's so sexist, and then part of me is like no, all of the profiting from the White House should be wrong. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, it's illegal.
So interestingly,
this is totally like off topic, but it's a Snapple fact. Mar-a-Lago was initially owned by Marjorie Post, as in the Post food family.
Well, like the Kellogg's people, like
cornflakes.
Wow.
Yes.
The anti-masturbation people from the Victoria Woodhull era, the Kellogg's people. Yes.
There you go.
Sorry.
And so she was, this giant socialite, and she became the big head honcho with food. She connected, I think I'm right on this. She connected with the guy who came up with a way to freeze vegetables, bird's eye peas and shit like that.
And maybe.
So she created this food empire by promoting cereals, da 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 da. She bought his technology, promoted his stuff, that kind of thing. So she comes up and she has this empire. She's amassed this crazy wealth. She owns Mar-a-Lago. And she gave the property to the National Park Service. When she died in 1973, she willed it to the National Park Service. And so her hope was that Mar-a-Lago would serve as a space where government officials could actually, function, or like, since it's in Florida, like, a winter getaway, kind of like Camp David, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what ends up happening is he purchased Mar-a-Lago for how much, I don't know, but it was a pretty penny.
Right.
And so it's been in his coffers ever since.
Wait, so this woman willed her estate, her legacy, to like the federal government, and it was like, what I want from this is public use, right? We should be using this estate to facilitate better conversations between elected officials or people in power or whatever. And instead of that, Donald Trump buys Mar-a-Lago. Am I pronouncing that right yet? Mara.
So that works. Yeah, we know each other.
Mar-a-Lago, who cares? And then he uses it as the, like, I don't know, symbol of oligarch corruption of our time. That just feels so
wrong.
So wrong. Yeah.
Now she willed it to the National Park Service. This is early 1970s. And then the cost to, if I'm not mistaken, the cost to maintain it was ridiculous, because I mean, like, it's acres and it's all kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
And so Congress gave it back to the family foundation.
That's hilarious.
And so that's how he ended up getting it. So they gave it back to the family foundation, and then he purchased it from the private entity. He didn't get it from the government.
Yeah, oh, good. Well, that's
no, he didn't get it from the government.
He got enough from the government. So, all right. So where are we? So, all right. So Melania Trump married Donald Trump. She had Barron. She became a mom, right? That's like her number one thing. She starts this business. Everything that she can nail, she crushes, but it's still a failure because businesses are hard. And her manufacturer ends up sort of fucking her. I think she wins those lawsuits, but is like, business is not for me. This is hard. I don't want to do this. I'd rather focus on Barron, and like manipulating Donald Trump is a full-time job. That's what I'm paid for. So like the jewelry line can wait. Right? Full-time
exactly.
Job. Right. So what does this take us to? Like her sort of like lawsuit with the company. Is Donald Trump announced yet, or is that still sort of in the future?
No, I feel like this happens in the midst of his campaign. And
that's right.
Once he enters the office, that's when the questions of, marketing this private business. Those right. questions come along. And so then you see her begin to, distance herself from that.
As Donald Trump's girlfriend, she's like calling into Howard Stern. She's playing this sort of sex kitten role. As Donald Trump's wife, she's willing to play, talent of a Mark Burnett production. As a mom, right, she brings her mother and father and sister to New York to sort of help buttress her family, and shifts her focus from external, modeling, PR, publicity stuff to taking care of her son. This is when she becomes like a professional, rich mom. Barron is like 8 or 9, I think, when Donald Trump announces his candidacy. Oh, I'm sorry. We skipped over a whole thing. Donald Trump like sort of fake runs for president earlier than this, when Melania is still just a girlfriend. And they have this whole thing where it's like, who would make a better first lady, Melania Trump or this like Victoria's Secret model? And it's like Donald Trump like picks Melania in this weird, like So they're together. They're like, they're boyfriend and girlfriend for like 8 years or something like that. But Donald is never monogamous. It doesn't seem like that's ever the expectation on Melania's part. Like, to be fair, she doesn't like to be publicly humiliated, but she also doesn't like having sex with Donald Trump. So it's kind of a draw. But she, like, Donald Trump apparently is dating his Victoria's Secret model during his like initial early run for president, and Melania Trump appears to be the better first lady. And so Donald Trump kind of sells his reunification with Melania as Melania like winning this reality television contest for his or for the privilege of professionally ignoring him. Like, I don't know. How would you describe Melania's role? Melania Trump is like if a house cat was a person. I feel like that is how I would describe Melania Trump, right? Like, she hates you, but like you love her for it for some reason. She's like, I will crash all of your pictures. I want wet food. I don't know.
I can't with you. I cannot with you. You are.
I'm sorry, Dr. Fletcher. Here's the thing. You're a real academic professional, and you've done a ton of research, and I also read those books, and I'm here just being like, I am a clown.
Insane. I didn't say I disagreed with you. I said
We've covered a lot of insane people that we don't disagree with.
How about that?
Valerie Solana.
There is this, everything is a performance.
Yeah.
I feel like with them.
Right. And
I mean, him obviously, but with her, well, I think the only
Melania in just as deep, like more subtle, I think, but just as true. I feel like Melania is a mirror of Donald Trump, but they are both the same kind of narcissist.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. So he has his fake run, but in the 2015, 2016 run, even now, you don't see her often campaigning for him. It's like she shows up. She gave a speech yesterday and I didn't catch it, but
I didn't catch it. That's my favorite part about Melania Trump. And that's what I think distinguishes her from other first ladies. And I feel like this is your area of expertise, and we have to like really center her within the legacy of first ladies. But like Melania's good boundaries, I think, are the best evidence of her just being an old bro. Because she is like, I support you, and also I am not.
Exactly. She picked, everything is a performance, but she picks and chooses the roles she's going to play and when she's going to play them. You didn't see her frequently on 4 years ago on that campaign trail. You didn't see her often this time around. Again, like you said, I support you, but no. And so she brilliantly uses her leverage to get to place herself in spaces that she wants to be in.
And this is the part of Melania Trump's personality that I feel like I have the most respect for, in that she is completely able to walk away from the expectations of spouse, right? From the performative expectations of first lady, and stand secure in the like, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do and nothing more and nothing less. And so like Melania participates in some of the stagecraft of statesmanship, but not a ton of it. And she lets to some extent, and then there's like some weird interpersonal stuff that we can like get into, but probably also not touch, between her and Ivanka, like the first daughter, right? Yeah. And so like that's complicated and confusing, but she is a very comfortable knot which I think is something that I both resent, like as a taxpayer and as a citizen and as somebody who has like sort of come to expect things of my first lady. And also as an old pro, can't help but respect and be like, wow, like that it takes a spine to look at the expectations and the weight of what a first lady in the 21st century is expected to do and just say like, nah, bro.
The role of first lady, yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. It's evolved, but I respected her position on, remaining in New York with her son, so that he could continue at his school and I'm here for that, absolutely. But she's made her fashion mark for sure. Fashion is something that is expected of a first lady to come, what is she wearing?
And I feel like she speaks that language more naturally than other first ladies.
I agree. And I guess we do have that fashion eye because of Jackie O.
Yep.
But by the same token, she's had some questionable positions that were articulated through her fashion choices. And I'm specifically talking about the jacket that she wore to the
oh my God,
camps at the border.
Yeah, and like and the thing is that's one of those stories where it's like I feel like I went into this sort of being like, well, I don't have a whole lot of respect for the first lady because like I don't like Donald Trump, right? Like that was my baseline position. And the more I learned about the specifics of this jacket incident, the less respect I had for her, right? Because like apparently best case scenario, right? The most generous interpretation of this jacket is that it was directed at Ivanka Trump and the media. That it's like this weird inter-palace thing where she's trying to deliver a message to like a party of one whose phone number and email she definitely has. So like that's the most generous interpretation of this. But the more obvious interpretation of this, which I think is something that like that haunts Melania Trump and that should continue to haunt her legacy, is her active complacency with the more horrific elements of the Trump administration and what the Trump administration has done, including the ICE camps, the separated children, the forced hysterectomies. Right.
Yeah. Right. Which brings me to her Be Best campaign.
The Be Best campaign isn't great on a lot of levels, but I think it's weird, right? Because like, there's definitely a part of me, again, as a professional provocateur, right? As a comic, as an out sex worker, I have a lot of respect for like the baseline, fuck you, watch this position, which is what it appears the Be Best campaign is all about. Every biographer I've read, every source I've come across, I'm sure that you can back this up, Dr. Fletcher, has been like every person in the know told Melania that this was a bad idea, right? Be Best doesn't sound right. Focusing on cyberbullying is dumb. This is not going to go well for you. And Melania takes a fuck you, watch this position. But like, not in a way that I respect. And like, she's ignoring good counsel.
Right.
Because she's never been able to elevate that campaign above the noise machine that is her husband.
The cyberbully that is her husband. Which brings me to the history of first ladies. Now, Melania is the
45, right?
She's 45. Or 45th. She's not 45.
No. Not yet.
No, she's not there yet. She's 45th. She is the second first lady to be born outside of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Louisa Adams was first, and she was the wife of John Quincy Adams.
And I feel like I know from Hamilton the musical that was very early in our history as a country, right? Because of the Adams administration.
Yes, you're correct.
Nailed it!
So she's also the very first lady to become a naturalized citizen. So yeah, so there's that. And so many questions that I want to dig in here. But the first lady, the office, excuse me, of the first lady, it does not exist anywhere in the Constitution. There is no such thing as the East Wing in the Constitution. And so early first ladies, folks like Martha Washington, were there to support their husband's role as the executive. Abigail Adams was there to, entertain guests, and Dolly Madison did the same thing. So it's a role that has evolved from late 18th century, early 19th century hostess to garner quite a bit of power, garner quite a bit of political flexibility, with first ladies being able to, in this capacity as hostess, be able to create environments for bipartisan discussion. Some first ladies, the one that always stands out to me, in addition to Michelle Obama, is Eleanor Roosevelt, for a whole host of reasons. And so with that in mind, where do you think Melania fits in?
So I'm an American citizen, right? I was born an American citizen. And so I was born in 1986. That's the Reagan administration, right? Mm-hmm. So like Nancy Reagan is my first lady, this like teeny tiny, just say no to drugs, judgmental teacup of a person, right? Oh. And then after Reagan, it's Clinton, right? Is that
George first Bush, Barbara Bush?
Oh, I missed that. I was a child, right? So George Bush's dad, that I have like vague and no memories of, and I don't remember his first lady wife, except that like I feel like she was boring by comparison, right? She was just like sort of right. Like I have no memories of George Bush Sr.'s wife. And then Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and I remember even as a child, Hillary Clinton's professional accomplishments and just like undeniable brilliance being like an existential threat to the role of First Lady, where she was like, I'm not an expert in fabric swatches, but I am an expert in healthcare legislation. And the American public being like, we do not know how to handle that. Like, we just like, we cannot even. And so I remember being a little girl and sort of watching the treatment of Hillary Clinton and being like, oh, this is complicated. This is a weird role. And then after Hillary Clinton, of course, it was George Bush and Barbara Bush. And I remember George Bush's wife, for her silence. I don't think that I could tell you what her voice sounded like. I can't remember any like positions she took. I feel like she was just sort of like generally and very blandly supportive. And then Michelle Obama, I remember, as just being like also very supportive, but not in a bland or dismissible or forgettable way, but like a very like Michelle Obama felt like a partner in the way that Hillary Clinton felt like, which in a way felt like an antithesis of the role of First Lady, which is like this very publicly supportive role. And so like Melania Trump, I remember in Donald Trump's like first run of things and sort of later was like asked like, how would you describe yourself as a First Lady? She said very traditional. And I feel like she was very specifically saying, like not like Hillary Clinton, not ambitious, not articulate, not with an agenda, but an expert on hues of shades of things, which is like, I think that is something that Melania can claim, you know, like Melania has a way of seeing that is like a genuine expert level on a craft that like I personally have no respect for. Like interior design and photo layout and like fashion choices are just, I mean, like, look, I don't know what to tell you. It's just something that I feel like is quintessentially feminine, that is like noise that is used to drown out our more important opinions. Like Hillary Clinton had very strong opinions about healthcare, and I feel like Melania Trump has like very strong opinions on like what china should be used at which meals. And I feel like those kinds of strongly held opinions are different.
I agree with you there. But she's also made quite a few controversial moves in her time in the White House beyond, be best. And her jacket, her fashion choices, the statements that she makes with her fashion choices.
Which, for the record, in case people are not familiar with what we're talking about, is the like $39 jacket she wore that said, "I don't really care, do you?"
Yes.
On her way to visit separated children at an ICE facility.
Yeah. But she also quite a bit of attention when she voiced her opinions about the ways in which the West Wing was staffed. And she caught quite a bit of heat for that, or her motives were questioned.
It was a weird mix, right? Because was it the chief of staff, or like what was the specific?
I think it was the chief of staff.
Yeah. So Melania Trump didn't like the chief of staff for some like internal reason. I think it had to do with like how he treated her staff or like some sort of specific thing, but then took what was billed as an unprecedented move from the East Wing, as it was true. Like, this is the first lady to have a public impact on the way the West Wing is staffed. And so like, I'd love to hear from you as a historian on like how to process or place that moment, which very much happened, right? Of Melania like issuing this public statement.
Yeah,
like, I don't like this dude.
Yeah, she wanted to, from what I understand, wanted to, sway who held certain positions, but she's not the first person to do that, which kind of takes me back to the original question that I asked you. What do you think her, space is as First Lady? The first person to do it was Woodrow Wilson's second wife, Edith Galt. So Woodrow Wilson was, interestingly enough, president during World War I, progressive era president, but the progressive era wasn't progressive for everyone. And Woodrow Wilson, he was racist, but that's another story for another time. So his first wife, she spent her first year, her name was Ellen, in the White House. She died. And so he married Edith. And while in office, Woodrow Wilson suffered from a stroke. And so instead of, revealing that he was incapacitated, to the American people, Edith took on the day-to-day workings of the office of president. She handled.
What year was this again? I associate Wilson with like the 19 teens.
Okay. This is 1919.
Right. So this is like just before women have the right to vote. She's like, I have access to all of the things.
Oh, absolutely. She was, one of the first to have access to classified information.
Amazing.
She was responding to, correspondence.
Are women people? I don't know. Give her the fucking coats.
She was also, so this is, the end of World War I. Wilson had proposed the League of Nations, and that's a whole nother conversation, but she actually traveled to Europe in an official capacity, which, something that didn't, happen, at this particular time. Because like you said, 19th Amendment. Hello. But she made a point to, attend briefings and all sorts of stuff. And the Secretary of State at the time was a man named Robert Lansing. And he continued to have meetings without Woodrow and Edith. And Edith didn't like that. That pissed her off. And so she successfully advocated for his removal. And this is 1919. So Melania is not the first person to do that.
Yeah, but Edith Wilson did it a year before women could have, women even had the right to vote, which is like, I think, a thing worth mentioning.
Absolutely. And not only did she do this in the midst of women's suffrage, her reasoning, of course, she didn't have this guy removed because she thought I just don't like him, or, he's ugly. No, she's literally taking on a lot of the responsibilities of the executive. And she made a decision, because you are keeping us out of the loop with pertinent information. And so she was the first person to actually do that. There may have been others prior in the 19th century, and I'm just not familiar, but she was the first one that turned heads to do it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that would be something that my aunt would always classify as like womanly wiles of like, if you're doing it right, it's not making its way into the papers,
There it is.
That makes sense. So yeah, so Melania Trump and her setting up of the East Wing, I think is an interesting exercise in that she's a minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
And also power hungry is not the word that I want to use, but sort of hyper aware of being slighted, I think would be a better characterization of what it is. So like Melania Trump is not really interested in any policy initiatives, right? Melania Trump is not actually interested in like reuniting children or shortening the wage gap or the orgasm gap for that matter. But like she is interested in not being upstaged by either Ivanka Trump or not necessarily the West Wing. Like, I feel like part of the deal between Melania Trump's relationship and Donald Trump's relationship is that like Donald Trump is the prima donna of their relationship, right? Like Melania does not mind being left behind, left and open. Like she is somebody who is taking care of her own emotional needs, right? Like her job is to like manipulate and control Donald Trump. It's not, she's not looking to him to get her needs met. And yet she is interested in controlling her image. And so it's a strange, I think, sort of like combination of things where she like both aggressively doesn't care in the way that I think like a normal human would. And then also hyper vigilantly cares about this shorter, narrower list of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that was evident with the tapes that were released at the beginning of October and then quickly overshadowed by something else. What
Can we just talk for a minute and talk about like what those tapes were and how they came about, and like let's contextualize those tapes.
Absolutely. So our favorite book, Melania and Me.
I hate the author. I hate the subject. Okay. Yes. The author, Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, secretly recorded these conversations, and Anderson Cooper, he is absolutely adorable. I love his eyes. But anyway, okay, so Anderson Cooper hosted, had her on the show and played these tapes. And there were two statements that were made on these tapes. They were recorded in 2018. And so she was talking about the traditional duties of a first lady, specifically decorating the White House for Christmas. And we have both agreed that we are not fans of her interior design visions. And which I'm a big enough person to admit is a matter of taste.
It is. It is. I agree. And so her response was, I worked my ass off on this Christmas stuff. Who gives a fuck about Christmas stuff?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I give you that.
So Stephanie, who doesn't strike me as like the brightest bulb in the box, right? Like, is ostensibly questioning Melania about her feelings around the ICE concentration camp situation that we have found ourselves in. And Melania's response is simultaneously, I'm working my ass off over this Christmas stuff, and like, who cares about the Christmas stuff? And why won't they deliver the story that I want them to? And it's fascinating and tragic, I think, in a couple of different directions, in that, like, I do not envy Melania Trump's social position, right? Like, the only person that she talks to in a day that she trusts is like her mom and her sister and like maybe her son, but probably not. And that's it, right? And East Wing has taken this sort of like minimalist role, but she is there to give, I guess, like, I don't know, a fashionable cover to the otherwise inexcusable behavior of the Trump administration, which I think has been like a social role that Melania has been playing for a long time, right? Melania Trump has been like a high EQ, socially competent person who has been the partner of Donald Trump since 1998, right?
Yeah.
So she's been just like standing next to awkward moment after social faux pas after whatever, right? Being like, I just have enough class to power through this moment. Except now she's doing that as the first lady, which, I don't know, I think is different. Like, I really think it's a different thing to be like, yep, I have decided that my highest value is that I own a bathrobe worth more than $45,000, and that is a life goal that I've decided, and I'm willing to put up with this level of narcissism and misogyny and nonsense and babysit this emotional toddler in exchange for financial decadence. Fine. Like, fine. But when that person transforms into the leader of the free world, and then you suddenly step in from being trophy wife to being wife of an authoritarian megalomaniac, I feel like a line is crossed where you go from being sort of like an old pro in the spectrum of complicated choices to being complacent.
I agree, because when she made the comment about the children on these tapes, her response was, give me a fucking break. Nobody talked about Obama when he did it. First of all, darling, Obama didn't keep kids in cages and separate them from their parents intentionally. And
that's important. Please say more about that. Because I hear this argument a lot, right? I hear from a lot of like otherwise well-meaning leftists of like, Obama was also bad on.
Well, I mean, Obama was not great. There were large numbers of deportations in his administration. There were detention centers in his administration. But the plan of explicitly separating the babies from their families, that was not one of Obama's plans. If I'm not mistaken, that was something that was approved by Jeff Sessions, the former Attorney General.
That makes sense.
Obama is not, don't get me wrong, he's not a saint in terms of immigration policy. He's not, I disagreed with quite a bit of his, foreign policy. All that aside, there will never be a president that you agree with 100%. No politician. I mean, hell, there's family members. You love them to death, but you don't agree with their political positions. Even maybe 2%. But to say nobody cared when Obama did it, yeah, that's because he didn't do it, baby.
Right, it's a misrepresentation of what Yeah,
But I feel like that's the common go-to in this administration, and I get
I feel like
so sick of that.
It's the common go-to in this administration, and it's something that I want to recognize as like the derogatory sense of the word whore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like I feel like we recognize what Lindsey Graham and like other sycophants in this administration are doing. And I do feel like Melania Trump is among them in making the decision, conscious or unconscious, that like buying into this bullshit is easier than fighting against it. Melania has demonstrated several times now during her stint as First Lady that she understands the power of the leverage that she holds and how to execute it, and simultaneously an unwillingness to do that on behalf of other people, right? She's leveraged it in order to negotiate her own prenup. She's done it to negotiate what her own office can do. She's done it in order to enforce some personnel opinions that she had, but she won't do it on behalf of immigrant children. And again, this is another example of like Melania Trump being willing to go out there on behalf of her own family, right? Her parents, her sister, and even standing in defiance and insisting that her son have dual citizenship, right? Like it would have been easier for her to capitulate to 100% American citizenship. But she has this like sort of depth of advocacy potential with her own family and with her own needs, but doesn't have a larger mission, right? Like she doesn't see herself as an immigrant. She doesn't see herself as a feminist. She doesn't even see herself as like, I don't know, an advocate for models. Like that's not a part of her worldview. And in this way, I feel like she is a perfect match for Trump. That like her and Trump sort of share this amoral analysis of the right thing to do is the right thing to do for them.
And I think that goes back to your description of what you think the role of First Lady is. This person who is basically an ambassador. You know, you're supposed to be the model of what, you know, good stuff is in America. And I agree with you in terms of, you know, his policies, and, you know, you have first ladies that support policies, and you remember Hillary Clinton and healthcare.
Right.
Folks will remember Michelle Obama and, you know, combating childhood obesity and healthy eating and all of these good things. And so Nancy Reagan and
just say no. Yep. Yeah, I was like in the third grade during the DARE program, during that like whole thing. Even as a fifth grader, I was like, this is bullshit.
I remember back then there used to be Officer Friendly, but they would combine McGruff the Crime Dog with Just Say No and the DARE program. It evolved into, it was, I remember that. So, but there was this platform that sought to improve the lives, you know, whether or not it did anything, you know, there was some effort made. You know, Rosalind Carter, she focused on mental health care. But she, you know, Jimmy Carter is badass because he's almost 100 years old, and I'm serious. He's like
still alive.
He's almost 100 years old, and he and Rosalind are going out building Habitat for Humanity house. Like, that's, say what you want about Jimmy Carter's presidency. That's fine. Sure, but you can't say anything bad about Jimmy Carter as a human, because
you cannot say anything bad about Jimmy Carter as a human. You can say a lot of bullshit about Jimmy Carter as commander-in-chief and executive, and I understand all of that, right? It's not a good look when you're afraid of a bunny rabbit in a canoe. I understand that. I understand why that's not a good look for Carter. And also, he's still fucking alive and has done nothing but goodness with the precious, precious time that he's been given on this earth. And so, like, yes.
Exactly.
I am with you on this issue, on these issues.
Absolutely. But she doesn't square into those corners, you know. I mean, it's hard for her to square into one of those corners when, even with her Be Best program,
right,
even if she attempted to do something, you know, significant with it, it's so counter to your husband's entire agenda, you know.
right. I just want to say that I think that this is sort of key to understanding the psychology of Melania Trump and sort of why I'm so eager to characterize her as like an old pro over and
Mhm.
above other identities, which I feel like this is a woman who made a deal, right?
Mhm.
This is a woman who sort of made an analysis early on, and in exchange for all of the consumer power, all
Mhm.
of it, was sort of willing to overlook and deal with anything, and I mean anything that came with that, from the
Mhm.
Epstein scandal
Mhm.
to the genocidal impulses of the ICE camp to
Mhm.
the wars, and I want to contextualize this because it's, I don't know, I feel like something that I really appreciate about old pros over wives, actually, are their boundary settings of
Mhm.
like the ability to sort of say like this and not that. And I feel like Melania has sort of like the emotional boundary setting of an old pro
Mhm.
personally, right?
Mhm.
That she like clearly has this division between her world and the performance art piece that is like sort of being Donald Trump's wife,
Mhm.
but she doesn't have that. She's not willing to make any sacrifices or stick her neck out even a little bit to stand up to protect sort of like her own values, let alone her own brand, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Like she's
Yeah.
very much the like paid companion of Donald Trump, you know,
Mhm.
and I think she's smarter than him. I think she manipulates him. I think that, you know, I do not believe that Melania Trump personally is suffering,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
do believe that she has
She's
sacrificed
not.
a lot of her self-identity to play the role that she does.
Mhm. Here's okay. This might be a loaded question. What do you think her post-presidential years will look like?
I will tell you what I think is likely to happen, and then I will tell you what I hope happens.
Okay.
I have to have faith in so many different institutions, right? Like I don't have faith in the criminal justice system. I don't have faith in the like, right? But like, let's pretend that tonight, right? It's 8:45 on election night, right? Let's
Mhm.
pretend Biden wins and Donald Trump
Claim
leaves office some way, somehow, right? And the apparatus that is our criminal legal justice system or whatever begins and starts to prosecute Trump for crimes committed.
Mhm.
What I suspect will happen during all of that is that Melania Trump pleads persuasively enough a level of ignorance, right? Of like, my job here is to buy $45,000 bathrobes, and I was under the impression that we could afford them, and that's how I was operating, and that's like her whole deal. And spends her considerable intellectual, emotional intelligence on securing provisions for herself and her son, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what I think is likely to happen.
Mhm.
What I hope happens in like a wet dream fantasy of the world, right, is that this is not, again, this is like not based in reality. Like this is not based on how anything, but like that Melania and Stormy and Ivanka and his other first two, Marla and Ivanka or whatever, and like all of the women that were legally associated with Trump, like get together and form like a Captain Planet ring off or whatever, and that he just like turns into dust. Like, I don't know. That's my fantasy of what could happen. But like, probably she just keeps buying whatever the fuck she wants to, and things work out for her and her son based on the measure of I can buy whatever I want to, and that's what freedom is, which is like a metric.
Okay. I definitely don't see her, you know, like other former first ladies, still engaging in, some sort of project. I mean, like Michelle Obama.
Right. I don't see her publishing a book after this. That I don't think is happening.
But then again, considering all of these books that have come out about her,
right,
being released from that role, she may or may not use that as an opportunity to actually tell her side of the story.
That's the thing though, is like, I don't think that Melania Trump has a side of the story. This is one of the things where, like, listening to her quotes and listening to her sound bites and like reading these biographies that are like painstakingly trying to sort of like create an interesting character out of Melania, is like, I feel like Melania is maybe not as interesting as we're even trying to make her out to be. That her silence has confused us, that we have sort of like mistaken her, I don't know, her subterfuge for substance, that like maybe she's just a bitch that is like, no, I see the value in a $45,000 bathrobe and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to stay in those.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
She could be, but in the time that we have left, let's talk about Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels is my personal favorite. I've met her a couple of times, and I will concede that she is not a great stand-up comedian, but she is a bitch that tried to save America. And also, as a provocateur, like, I have a lot of respect for Stormy Daniels, because like Stormy Daniels is the person that forced the White House, right, the president of the United States, to take the official position, I did not fuck her, and she loved it, which is just a perfect and beautiful official position for, I think, any executive branch to take. So I love Stormy Daniels. And and her and the First Lady have been going at it.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you make of the back and forth Twitter?
I think Stormy Daniels is comfortable being a whore and Melania Trump is not. I think that like Stormy Daniels has like faced her shadow and accepted it. And I think Melania Trump like exists in a state of denial. I feel like that is the like breakdown of these two women.
Do you think it's because there's no substantial evidence that, Melania has engaged in acts of prostitution?
I think Melania Trump definitely believes in her heart of hearts that she's better than Stormy Daniels, and I believe in my heart of hearts that she's not. Right? Like, I think Stormy Daniels had like a more open and honest negotiation with Donald Trump than Melania did. That's my position.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Even though it was after the fact, even though it was NDA, right? Like, even though it was like all of these shades of bullshit, like, I feel like Melania Trump is lying to herself when she says that she's not a whore. And I mean that in a pejorative sense, in a way that I feel like we don't under normal circumstances in this podcast, right? I feel like when people say whore, they often mean promiscuity or like the exchange of sexual pleasure. And I feel like in this context, when we say whore, what we mean is like selling something important, if that makes sense, or like giving over one's identity. And I will say, as somebody who has both sold sex and blowjobs and handjobs and like sex stuff and worked in political fundraising is way grosser in like all of the ways that matter. Yeah, I feel like Melania Trump has certainly given more of herself to Trump for possibly less than Stormy Daniels.
Gotcha. I agree with that. So
we got a question. We have a question from the audience here that I want to address. How, Lydia asks, how, if at all, do you think Melania Trump, as an old pro, has given voice or recognition to old pros on a national level? I think that is an important and difficult question. And Dr. Fletcher, I want to give you first bite at the apple on that, mostly because I don't know what to say.
So just throw it at me.
Yeah, just throwing you under the bus. Yeah, I thought. Yeah. Do you feel like Melania Trump's position as somebody who is posed naked, right? As somebody who is engaged in modeling, as somebody who is accused of escorting, has given any voice or recognition to old pros in the way that like we here at the podcast seek to sort of like destigmatize or decriminalize adult consensual prostitution?
No. And it's largely because of her husband. In order to decriminalize sex work and to move forward with, the whole idea, Victoria Woodhull and Paschal Beverly Randolph, free love, being able
Sure.
to enjoy that pleasure, all of these things. I think in order to make a mark, a positive mark in changing, societal views of sex work to actually view sex work as work, labor. It's already a difficult conversation to have. But when you have this individual who refuses to actually embrace her status as an old pro, number one, and then goes to bat with an old pro who
right, and then uses trafficking, right? It's like there's a lot going on there, right? Because
right.
like on the one hand you have the hierarchy, right, which is that
Right.
like Melania Trump thinks she's above it, right? In
Right.
the way that like sugar babies or like A-list actresses or like people that pose in Playboy but like nothing else think they're above it or outside of it, right? Not recognizing the stickiness of
Right.
whorephobia and how it, entraps all of us, right? All women, including
Exactly.
folks who have never been accused of looking sexy, let alone profiting from it. And I also think that it's all wrapped up in this idea of like meritocracy and trafficking hysteria, right? And like the Donald Trump administration is the administration that signed Sesta Fosta into law, right? Like this is the administration that is using a law and order platform to crack down on Black and minority and marginalized communities, including sex workers. And I feel like Melania Trump's like very self-conscious, very deliberate distancing of herself from her, let's call it less privileged sisters in this trade, right? I think is part of the problem. So yeah, I would say that Melania Trump is more 2 steps back than she is a step forward, right? Despite the sexy pictures, despite the
you can't expect to decriminalize sex work when you are married to someone who is actively working to criminalize people of color, actively looking to criminalize, the LGBTQ community while committing his own crimes.
Yep.
Like you can't have it both ways. You can't, especially when, you have so many questions around just his general activity, just in paying Stormy Daniels. When we talk about this,
right.
we talk about, this is, even though it's, it may be completely and utterly gross, but this is, engaging with him particularly. But, this is labor for Stormy Daniels. And if you're coming at it from the perspective of, right off the bat, this is criminal, this is, this is morally bankrupt, this, that, and the third, you can't do much to affect change in that regard, especially when you're challenging her on Twitter, going back and forth talking about who's a hoe and who's not.
I've always believed that sex workers were shapeshifters, right? Yeah. And I do think that there is something there behind the destigmatization and decriminalization of sex work, like as it appeals to the like dumbest and most conservative voters, right? And I feel like an embrace of like I don't think that like admiring Melania Trump is necessarily incongruent, right, with like believing in the destigmatization, decriminalization of sex work. And also I believe that position is ultimately and fundamentally more radical than anything than a Melania Trump or, you know, a Marie Antoinette is not leading the revolution, right? Like, that's not what's happening. And also, slut shaming is wrong, right? So, like, Melania Trump's sins have nothing to do with the amount of skin that she exposed in a photo shoot and have everything to do with her buttressing and complacency and providing sort of like a chic, I want to say homage, but what I really mean is not camouflage, but like when you're in the desert and you see a mirage, right? So like providing like a chic mirage, right? I'm drunk, Dr. Fletcher. I'm sorry. So like providing like a chic mirage to Donald Trump's otherwise.
Oh my goodness. That was hilarious.
Right? Really blatant,
that was hilarious.
Violations. I'm sorry.
That was hilarious. Totally hilarious. Well, with that,
it's election night.
It is. And dearest America, I hope you have enjoyed your time with the Old Pro Project, our second live panel. Old Pro panel, because we are awesome and this is so much fun. So here's the good news. We're doing the next one the day before Thanksgiving. So get your pre-dinner plates and join us on November 25th at 7 p.m. right here on StreamYard. We are going to be chatting with Joy Michael Ellison, who is a scholar extraordinaire on the lives of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and the spicy Cayenne
Dora Show.
Dora
She's
Show.
The best.
Absolutely. Who will be cooking while we chat.
Yeah, because she has her priorities straight. Founder and executive director of Glitz is like, I will talk to you, but I will be cooking. And I was like, well, that is fine. We're fine with that.
We're totally here for that. So join us. We thank you for sharing in this moment with you. We hope that we have given you some giggles to kind of quash your anxiety. Don't watch the numbers. It's going to be okay.
And I will also say this, please, if you're looking for more ways to support the show, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what we do here, please consider supporting the show on Patreon. And as we said in the beginning, announcing tonight, election night 2020, the first time that Old Pro merch is available for purchase. So make sure that you get in on that.
Yes, because it's badass. Visit us on the web, theoldestprofessionpodcast.com. Visit us on Twitter, the Instagrams, and Facebook. And once we find a young person to help us navigate TikTok, we'll be
if you're a Zoomer and you know how TikTok works and you want to make $20 an hour, you should email us because we're into that. We don't know how that works. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Old Pro Podcast. And please shoot us an email and stay in touch. And as Irene, who is posting as us on the comments, check out our fucking merch.
Right. Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to our thoughts on Melania Trump and the state of affairs in America at the moment. Although this is a history podcast, we are very aware that we are, all of us, are living through history, which is something that's true all the time, but feels especially more so true right now. If you're looking for ways to support the podcast, I really cannot recommend enough that you rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps new listeners find the show. And plus, it makes it feel less like I'm shouting into an empty cave. Thank you again for listening. This has been The Oldest Profession.